Johnny, what can we learn from the lives and suffering of Christian martyrs?
We can learn maybe more about our own Christian life than from any other experience. I mean, these are stories, 2,000 years of stories of Christians whose faith not only guided their life, but cost them their lives. And they're some of the most incredible stories in history. Uh, they're literally transformative. But it's important to remember that these heroes are not super Christians. They're everyday Christians like you and me. It's just that they lived in a time and a place, whether it was 2,000 years ago or 2 years ago, where they had to make a really difficult choice about whether they would live for Christ or pay the ultimate price.
And I'm sure you compiled a lot of stories. So can you share one that has had the greatest impact on you?
I'll share one old and one new. There's the amazing story about Perpetua, this early Christian woman who was martyred from a wealthy, well-to-do family. Her father begged her, pleaded with her to recant her faith, and yet she chose to stand. And in fact, the eyewitness account says that as she was about to die, she put her hair up. In that culture at that time, by putting her hair up, it was like a statement of dignity. And so she wanted to die, showing these crowds of thousands of bloodthirsty people that they could take her life, but they couldn't take her dignity. And she was preparing herself as she entered heaven to be ready to see Jesus. There's so many strong, powerful women, these amazing stories. And then one of the newer stories, which is one of the most impactful to me, is of a Christian woman who served in Iraq just not too long ago in our living memory, 10 years ago or so. And she left a letter, a sealed letter with her pastor, only to open in the event of her death. And she did die, and that letter was opened, and the contents of the letter we've recorded in the book. I just think that if you want to have a personal awakening in your life, the shortest path to a spiritual rejuvenation is through the testimony of these amazing believers. It's a big book, but it's divided into small little sections, and so you can read a story a day or read your kids a story a day or when they're the right age. I think it's transformative if you do that. And pastors, I'm encouraging pastors, don't give one Sunday a year to the persecuted church. Every Sunday, you can take a story from this book and you can make it a sermon illustration. You can inspire your congregation.
What's your hope for this book? What's the takeaway?
I hope this book awakens a generation. In early American history, in many homes, if there were books at all, there was the Bible, and there was Fox's Book of Martyrs. These stories have been carried with us for centuries. And I just hope that these stories inspire a new generation to live for the faith that they say that they believe. It's like a spiritual shot in the arm. But even more than that, I hope as we in the West read these stories, that it causes us to pray more and to help more and to advocate more and to learn more from the persecuted church. Because the fact is, it is the worst time to be a Christian in many places of the world. There have been more martyrs in the last century than in the previous 19 combined. And yet, the church is growing more quickly than at any time in history. So it is the best of times, while it is the worst of times. And there's so many lessons we can learn just by stopping for 5 minutes a day and reading some of their stories.